go to the back of the book, Paul, on page 567, and it's called The Spiritual Experience, and it's on page 567. You find it?
Yeah.
Okay, The Spiritual Experience, Appendix 2. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. In the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could hardly be accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. Many of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual principles. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We found that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. And there's a quote by Herbert Spencer. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Paul, alcoholic. Well, yeah, this was quite necessary because of the people in the beginning. They thought that there was that only one way. It would have to be a white light experience. This is always can turn into a problem in any kind of spiritual group. Somebody sort of describes an event, and then people think that's the only event. Yeah, so it sort of can go to like great lengths where someone, is walking through Walmart in the appliance section, on a Wednesday morning, and a toaster fell off the shelf and hit him in the head, and he sort of woke up. So then he just innocently describes that to some people, and now people start going to Walmart on a Wednesday with the keep walking back and forth in the appliance section. Hopefully a toaster will drop on their head, and thinking that's the only way they can enter. But there's a beautiful statement in Zen, out of many, many. They call it the open gate, the gateless gate. Yeah. So what does that imply? The gateless gate. There's no gate you have to walk through. You are what you're looking for now, or the open secret. So obviously that's a negating statement, because the open would negate that there's a secret. Yes, exactly. So, and then even in Zen, they branched out into schools, and there was the school of sudden enlightenment and the school of gradual enlightenment. The sudden enlightenment would be like Bill Wilson getting whacked in that hospital bed, and then the gradual enlightenment would be doing the process of recovery and having a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. Yeah, and uh, I think whatever way it works is best suited to the seeming person that's going through it. Yeah, because a lot of people do a lot better when stuff takes over slowly than if it's like a overnight coup, so to speak. So they tend to like to outgrow things, not get completely placed in a position of neutrality in a second. So yeah. So whatever that is shows an incredible amount of love based on the the predilections and the ability of the action figures. Yeah. So some people would totally flip out if all was revealed. Yeah. I mean, they'd have a psychic break. They would. The thing would crumble, and the crumbling would seem real. Yeah. So then it would be a real disaster. Someone slowly, it crumbles slowly, and then you see the unreality of the edifice, for a while. So you're not taking it so seriously when it crumbles. Yeah. So yeah, so I think that's why they had to put this in there, because people, of course, not the head immediately looks at uh, looks at everything as an exclusion, not an inclusion. So someone shares this great event, and people think that excommunicates them out of that possibility. It's insane, really. Again, it's the head that Herbert Spencer is speaking about. Yeah. So the 12 steps, I would say the point of the 12 steps is a spiritual awakening, so that there's a loss of interest in self, or that sort of mutated self-awareness, and now there's an interest in, let's say, the infinite, as they call it, and the infinite would be sensed as a presence. Yes. That presence wouldn't necessarily have to be produced by thoughts and feelings. It would just be there, because it always is. So I think the third step effects describe it pretty well. You'll become conscious of a presence, a new power will flow in. These are all the effects of that change occurring through the grace of whatever that is, that power, and that grace moving through the steps. I don't think the steps produce a spiritual awakening. I believe the steps allow a spiritual condition to express itself, really. I don't see steps producing shit, really. Not on a spiritual level. I would say we are spirit. I mean, there's not like a lack of some there and then too much here. It's just, yeah. So you feel the conscious presence. Now, most of the time we've been unconscious to that presence because we've been super conscious to the selfing. Yeah. We've been really, really engaged with the interpretation of life instead of the living of it. Yeah. And going down that rabbit hole, the view gets more and more myopic, and now you seem to be unconscious of that presence. Now, does that mean the presence isn't there? I don't believe so. I just think we're not there, seemingly. So once you lose interest in self, the effect of that is you grow in consciousness of presence. Yeah. So now I feel you have a way, and it turns into a habit where you start before thought instead of appear after thoughts. Yeah. Because if you appear after thoughts, you're the making of the thoughts. Yeah. If you are that which is before the thoughts, you have immunity to thoughts quite a lot. Yeah. It's just the thoughts are just the thoughts. There's a lot of meaning given to them. If you're after the thoughts and you're held as the thinker, yeah, that's the obsession with self. If you're before thoughts, you see thoughts as thoughts, not as yours. Yeah, and there's an easier way to travel through them. You're gonna go through thoughts every day. Yeah. Maybe you won't pay as much attention to all of them, but the ones that go by that you do pay attention, uh, yeah, a lot of times they're being used to present false evidence, really, that will appear real if we take it. And I believe that I feel the root of the dilemma is not alcoholism. It's obsession with self. It's an identification as self. Yeah. And that self, how I'm implying it, well, first of all, I don't believe there is a self. There's selfing, but that manufacturing of self is the claiming of the act of being conscious here. Yeah, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, thinking. I'm not saying you're the seer, the hearer, the feeler, the taster, the toucher, the thinker. I believe there are thoughts without a thinker. There's feelings without a feeler. There's seeing without a seer. What the head does, it interprets the seeing to imply a seer. It claims the hearing to imply a hearer. It claims thoughts that must be yours. You must have something to do with them. Yeah. And they seem so personal. Not at first, because the algorithm kicks into a personal cache of thoughts that download. Once the selfing hits that algorithm, then you have a story that suits this idea of Paul, and only Paul would think this way. Yeah, but it's manufactured. It truly is. And alcoholic thoughts are just, when you start seeing, they stick out like a sore thumb. Much more easy to see alcoholic thoughts as not yours than most of the other thoughts. But it's the beginning which leads to a relief from thought, to tell you the truth. So you see alcoholic thoughts and you realize they're not yours because a lot of people have them. Yeah, you go into meetings and people are sharing their thoughts. They sound just like yours. There's got to be something being revealed there. You know, a lot of people seem to have my terminal unique feelings. I don't know how did that happen? How did they get my thoughts? How did they get my feelings? Or that's an incredibly mistaken conclusion, and they're not my thoughts. That's why so many of us, when we drive on the highway of life, being directed by alcoholism, we end up at institution jails and death, you know? From very, very various, completely different origins, we end up at the same place. So we must have been driven by the same thing, yeah? You have to get a feeling of that sooner or later, because if you don't see it as something other than you, you're going to live as self, and you're going to try to be free as self. And you're going to get caught in that huge net, because no matter how great a swimmer you are, you're going to get caught in that statement, self can't get out of self. It's just that simple. Yeah. So the whole point of recognizing the act of being identified is the first introduction to glue or bondage to this idea of self. That's where the relief lies. Yeah. After that, getting relief for self, as self, by self, is still a form of bondage. Yeah. And so the relief that's possible in that bondage is incredibly stinted. Yeah. Now, it may seem to be incredibly great compared to what it was like, but basically, a lot of other possibilities has been, throttled, so to speak. Yeah. Because self can't get out of self. So the only way truly, I feel, to get out of self is see that you're not in self. I think that's the correct starting point. If you're looking from self as self, trying to get out of self, good luck. I just don't see it works. So, yeah, I don't know where that started. Oh, the spiritual experience. So remember, spiritual experiences do not total up to a spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is to something that's already so. You wake up to it. It's not a new experience. It's a contextual state. You wake up to it. Yeah, by basically, really, the pivot is based on losing interest in self, like it says in right before the third step. It says, "Oh, losing interest in self, then all this other shit happens. Like you get interested in others, see what you can contribute to life. That's the pivot, is loss of interest in self. Now, self can't lose interest in self. This is what you need to understand these things, because you may be thinking something's happening, but the reverse will be occurring. Yeah, you'll be reinforcing self, trying to get out of self. So this is where understanding's helpful, and we're doing this at these meetings, where it's just sharing a pair of glasses, and if you see it this way, you'll see a lot more, and hopefully there'll be a clarity concerning something that's quite important, because if the starting point isn't the starting point, yeah, if the starting point is the manufactured path of self, and you're actually before that starting point, yeah, and you're not really liking the road of self, or the path of self, but at that point, the only thing you can do is try to get out of it, not knowing that you're identified as it. So you get caught with the solution just as much as the problem. The solution may not be as flamboyant and extreme effects, but it's still a bondage, yeah. Yeah. Because you're calling a lot of its effects yours. You're in the act of being identified. And if you're in the act of being identified, you're not in the act of being unidentified. Obviously. If you try to be in the act of being unidentified while identified, it doesn't go well. You think you reach the promised land, and it's quite familiar. It looks just like it always does. The promised land isn't a land, it's a way of seeing. Yeah. If you're still seeing the same old way, I truly believe you drop an alcoholic into heaven, it's hell in a day. They'll see all the inadequacies of heaven and shit. It's a little too cold up here. So, I mean, yeah. I just keep beating this point. Thank God, yeah, from where I'm sitting, thank God there's no need to beat this point. Yeah. I've skied down this hill. I've sledded down the hill. It's not that scary, really. It isn't. The loss of interest in self. What's the easiest way to get a sense of that is through service, I feel, in AA, at the beginning for sure. Yeah? Didn't you notice, like the hospital and institutions, where we live, you had to have 6 months of sobriety. Then you could go with another person or people and bring a meeting into a detox or someplace, yeah? And you would have a momentum of obsession built up in you, and then you'd be like completely flipped out about what's not happening concerning something, and you would arrive at that facility, and the longest the longest the self could stand it would be 10 or 12 minutes, and then it would break, and there was that presence and all like that. Guaranteed. It worked every time. I did a lot of H&I for 12 or so years, and I thought it's good to let other people, But for 11 or 12 years, I was solidly doing a few a month. And every time, no matter how heavy it was, the head, once it was brought into that room, the air was sucked out of it. Yeah, it was released every time. Now that's great to have that experience, but there's knowledge there. Something is being revealed by those effects and the stability of those effects. Yeah, you're gonna feel when you're out of self. You're gonna feel things that you would really love to feel as a self, but that great party sucks when you get there. So there's a point where you see the lack of value of this obsession, yeah, and all of its advertising that it's going to be great when you and I, Paul, get there. You realize it can't get there, and there's a sobering assessment, you know, that self can't go for this ride. It can't go on this path or this journey. And there's a loss of interest in it by the habits that we build in AA. Yeah. And that loss of interest isn't a battle every day. It's a progression. Just like it says the disease progresses, I believe recovery progresses. That loss of interest leads to more loss of interest to a certain point where the equilibrium has shifted. Yeah. You've all lost interest in self sufficiently to have these accesses of this power to become obvious. Yeah. Now, instead of being self-aware, you're presence aware. Yeah. So the higher power has taken over the company, basically. Yeah. And now the lower power, still thinking it's the CEO, is put in the mailroom, you know, just fucking tries to send a message every day, but nothing changes really. I mean, this head tells me turn left, and I go straight for years, right, straight. It's like a GPS that isn't listened to. It's great. So the volume seems to go down because the battery's running out. It lives off of us. Yeah. It doesn't have its own light source. We're the battery. Why would it constantly be playing at us? You know, why would it need any tool to convince us if we weren't something other than it? Yeah, it sure sounds like it works a lot to convince us to do something that if we were it, we would just do it. Yeah. Does it? I mean, obviously. It sits there for hours trying to bring you to its idea of surrender, which is fuck it. It is constantly working. What happened? It didn't even happen. It just says it happened. And it just builds a case. And if there's the spiritual awakening gives you a strong, constitution against these attacks. Yeah, that's what it does. So when you can withstand the advertising, you don't commit, so to speak. Yeah. So the fuck it, there's no response. You don't do something stupid. You just do the same old because the habits are in place. So the fuck it just goes off. It just peters out. Yeah. And you realize a lot by the absence of the problem. You do. You really see the problem from the relief of it. You get a real, bird's eye view. You see the emperor without any clothes. You do. And you stop calling yourself the emperor. You're not rushing to put something on. You just gaze and see it. Yeah. So, yeah, the spiritual awakening it's not like spirit was unawake. I mean, and you were just lucky enough to be there and witness its awakening. The spirit has awoken. No, that's Johnny come lately. The spirit is the spirit. Yeah. Yeah. We become aware of something that's already there and is always there and will always be there, or here, really. It's not a there. It's a here. There's no traveling necessary. It's like contextual. It's like the water in relation to the fish. Yes. Yeah. So the spiritual awakening to me is a diminishing of the interest in self. That's what does. The steps diminish the interest in self and then you awake to something that's always been so. Yeah. Hallelujah. And then your immunity to the other shit grows. Yeah. It does. Almost naturally. Because now the suggestions have become habits, and habits are actions without thoughts. And so if the problem resides in the mind, you don't want to think about the actions that keep you sober. You'd rather have them as habits, yeah? Obviously. So over time, that's what occurs. You're not looking for a suggestion. You've taken them, yeah? And now they've taken you into habit. Yeah. And then that willingness to go to any length, the emphasis is more on willingness. You may not have to go anywhere. You know, when you hear any length, of course, we think, oh, a huge amount. No, it says any length. It could be no length. Yeah. What? Yeah. So, yeah. The spiritual, and a lot of spiritual experiences will happen. Yeah, whatever you call them. I can't believe there's a certain substrata of experience called spiritual experiences. That's just coming from the mental head. Oh, that's a spiritual experience. These are, I don't know what they are, but I'll get to categorizing them later. These are spiritual. Give me a break. It's like the idiot in the room saying who's the savant, you know? it's insane. I'm having a spiritual experience. Yeah, like every second. What do you mean? Are you in contact with things? Yes. Are you the one who's in contact with things? Yes. No. Consciousness is in contact with things. Yeah. Conscious contact. It doesn't say Paul's contact. No. Paul is the interpretation, the mental interpretation of conscious contact. Conscious contact is what's happening. Consciousness, not AKA not Paul as a thing, completely Paul as no thing, let's say. Consciousness is in contact, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, and then on a level, a more subtle level, thoughts, yeah, and stuff, yeah, ideas, intuitive senses, yeah. That's consciousness in contact, yeah. In this atmosphere, you got to wear a body like a suit to get in contact, but the body's not what's conscious. Yeah, all of us. I always share it, but I saw when I was about 9, my mother took me to my Uncle Fred's, and I knew Uncle Fred, you know, his wake, and then asked if I wanted to say goodbye to Uncle Fred, which I wasn't that keen about, but she grabbed my hand, took me from the seat, walked by the casket, and I swear it made an impact then. I just saw the body. I said, that ain't Uncle Fred. It was clear as day. Yeah. Now in hindsight, I realize why I thought the body was Uncle Fred, because I'm thinking this body's Paul. So I was lending this to every other body, what was placed here, which is really the root of all false evidence, don't you think? Really, the false evidence is the mental and the physical are first, and the spirit maybe or may not come later. Yeah, maybe you'll have a lot of spiritual experiences, maybe a little. But isn't it the other way around? Conscious or spirit is first, and then there's the physical and mental. So we've got the horse. We see the horse behind the cart, even though it's in front of the cart. Yeah. All day, do you really see shit? No. Consciousness sees stuff. Yeah. Then the story of seeing shit is Paul saw it. That's the beginning of the bondage of self. And there's also, that means that's false evidence, isn't it? So false evidence is appearing real, and the appearance of this false evidence is Paul as a body. Yeah. So when false evidence is appearing real, is taken to be me, I fall for a lot of false evidence. Because a lot of false evidence appears real to false evidence. And so we want to get clear. I'm not going to buy any false evidence. You're already bought the false evidence. You're taking yourself to be it. It's going to be very difficult to be able to tell the difference between true or false, because you're sort of on the false side. I want to be true to myself. No, you don't. You don't want to be true to yourself. That's false evidence. Lose interest in self. Yeah, that's the truth. Being true to the self can be quite dangerous. Oh, man. So, yes, this program is incredible. Maybe a lot of things can work, and I'm sure they can, but in this case, this has worked with me. So, yeah, this set me straight in this world. I don't think I would have been able to. I probably would have gotten terminally impaired soon. Yeah, it was just. Yeah, I was really being driven hard, by a fucking, like we all have been, and yeah, I didn't think there would be that many rotations around the sun, just couldn't take it. So I was lucky I got struck sober. I didn't come to this slowly. I came to AA to extend the struck of being sober. If I wasn't introduced to AA through I feel grace, conspiring and setting off a train of circumstance that brought me to a meeting that night, and the thing happened sort of in the morning. That thing that was made available probably would have died on the vine in a day or two. Yeah. But because it was matched with a way of life called recovery, it's extended for 34 years. So pretty incredible. Really. Really. And, I had nothing to do with that, obviously. I was just, at that point, I was not seemingly hopeless. It seemed like really hopeless. And I was just trying to stay unconscious until I ended up in jail, death, or an institution again, really. I was just, yeah, the hope had been extinguished completely, really. So, yeah. So from that relief, that's how you can describe the problem, is from relief. When you get relief from something, you know it, really. When you're under it, you don't know it. Yeah. Once you have knowledge of it, that's why I don't see self-knowledge avails us nothing, but knowledge of self is very valuable. If the knowledge of self is that you're not that proves incredibly valuable. Yeah. So, all right, thanks everyone, and release the Krakens. See what happens.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul today? Please use the raise hand feature, and we'll call on the orders that the hands was raised. Paul, I really like the idea of what you were saying about the hospitals and institutions, and I've experienced that in my own little way after hearing about what was taking place. Is that I could see in my own experience, like I experienced that because I help coach, or I coach a little league, a basketball team, and a girls basketball team, and my daughter's on the team. And probably like about a half an hour before the practice or the game starts, my head will start in on me, and it'll give me like a whole bunch of reasons why I don't want to do it, and then I'll go to the practice. As soon as I get on the court and I start getting engaged in coaching, everything shuts off. it's amazing how it happens. Everything just shuts off. I'm engaged, and I have a great time. And then probably about 3 minutes after I get into my car to drive home, it starts in. Oh, you suck. That was horrible. Nobody likes you, and all these
Yeah.
that mental phenomenon that goes on with the selfing just grabs a hold, and it wants to grab a hold. But something that you talked about today that I was talking with a friend is about, like, that I don't hear too much about, is the physical aspect of the selfing. Could you maybe talk about a little bit about that?
What do you mean the physical? What aspect?
The physical aspects of selfing that you've talked about in the
Oh,
past.
yeah, of course. I mean, on an influential level, yeah, the mental has a lot more influence on the body than the body has on the mental. Yeah. So, like, I know when I started to go, I got run over by this car, and at that point, the head disassociated from the body. Yeah, just somehow I moved up into the attic and basically forgot the body, and that was the strategy the head had. Yeah, because the body got mangled up. It just wanted to fly away. It was still attached, but it wasn't at home. Yeah, and then when I got able to start doing drugs more, though I did them in the hospitals, I just went off, and I did not take care of myself at all. And that disassociation, I had to be reintroduced to the body when I got sober. Yeah, and the house was a mess when my head finally got pushed back into it. I had a lot of physical damage that had to be taken care of, and sobriety allowed that to happen. A whole lot, because I had been avoiding it for years, running around like crazy. Yeah, well, limping around like crazy, really. There was no running unless the cops were there, but it was limping mostly. So, um, and of course, the head's having a field day. Obviously, with drinking, the liver and everything, those things can happen. But like, almost when you're getting loaded, you don't get flus or shit. Do you? I never had a flu when I was fucked up all the time. I don't remember it anyway. That shit all catches up to you when you get sober. I mean, because there's so much toxin that it's reached a level of adaptability. I mean, you're really sick. Yeah. And then in that way, it works better to keep avoiding it, because it's going to be a day of reckoning when the body can, you know what I mean? And so when I got sober, man, I didn't even know that I had a terrible staph infection. Yeah, and my legs, on my upper left leg, I had a huge rod from the knee up into the hip joint. Yeah, that you could hear it move. It wasn't solid. Yeah, so I get sober. I haven't been sober in a long, long time, and in a way, sober sucked physically, because my body was fighting an incredible staph infection, and I had no idea of. And the colony had been living on the rod in my leg for years. So it was a huge staph colony, like a giant beehive. I had to go to the doctors, to the hospital, because my leg would just blow up and I didn't remember hitting it. And then they went through a lot of neti, not this, not that, because they don't know what they're fucking doing, really. They just say it isn't this, it isn't that, and then they arrive at, wait a minute, it could be staph infection. So I had to go through that, and stuff like that. So the body had absorbed a lot of impacts. Yeah, physical, cars, and mistreating, overdosing, everything like that. Yeah, it had a, yeah, it wasn't gonna, the body wasn't gonna be okay overnight. It had a lot of work to be done. Yeah. And AA gave me the willingness to go through it all. It's incredible, really. Yeah. So, I mean, the head under extreme obsession with self has a, like a scorched earth policy, and the body is the earth. Yeah. Yeah. It just burns through it. So, yeah. So I think, is that what you were implying? Part of that?
Sure was. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I still have trauma that the body took. Yeah. But I just don't take it. Uh, when I 15 years sober, I'd take long plane flights and I'd go into Australia, and I thought they were going to pull me off the line because I was still wanted by Interpol. Yeah. And so my body would feel contracted and get a little nervous and sweaty. Yeah, as if it was reliving all these shit. And thank God I knew better, so just walked through. And every year it sort of got better. Yeah, and a lot of that revibrating that way stopped and started dancing to a new tune. Yeah, yeah. That's the beauty of this. You trust the process, and you're not the decider of when the progress ends or starts. Yeah, or where it's going to go to. Yeah. So, yeah. All right, Mike.
Thank you, Paul. I don't see any hands up today, so anybody have any questions for Paul or comments or want to share a little bit, please do. Now's your opportunity.
Can I share one thing about the head's relationship to the body? I've noticed
I'd
this in
love it.
my
Yeah.
own life. I've noticed this in my own life and watching others. Let's say you're riding on a hill, and you got on your new 10-speed bike, and you start veering off the cliff. Which do you try to save, the body or the bike? I noticed the bike would be the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very
Yeah.
informative. The head doesn't have much value for you as a body. It'd much rather save the bike than you. You'll tumble down the cliff and you'll be thinking, at least I saved the bike. That's a weird value system to live under, I feel. Yeah, I seriously. Sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't reveal itself to those moments, but those moments can be quite revelatory because you see the value system of the parasite, so to speak. And you're not up in the top 10. You're a vehicle for it to use, basically. Yeah, it doesn't. I had it early on when I was young. I remember a bunch of us, we were like 17, 16, and I used to have a room underneath my mother's room where we'd party. So we dropped some acid there. We were going to go to New York to see Rod Stewart and the Faces play. And I dropped like two tabs of acid and stuff. And before I left, my head told me, and I had studied the greatest instinct is self-preservation. Yeah. And most animals, they have an instinct to save themselves. And I understood that concept. And then I heard my head saying, let's drop about 5 secanols
Mm.
on top of 2 tabs of acid. And I'm saying, that doesn't sound like it has any preservation instinct. Maybe for self, but not for me as a body. It could have killed me, yeah. But I would get these clues, but I just keep getting pushed to the next moment. But those clues built up, and when I started to see shit, yeah. So yeah, this Just look at the head. If you're having a good time, it gets suspicious that it's going to end quickly, or they're going to find out you're a fraud. And then if you feel a little bit uncomfortable, it's the beginning of a lifelong depression. You got to see its value system. It's way scoot. It's not. It's not even keel. Yeah, it's contraction, very emphasized. Expansion, not so much. Yes. Do you want that to be, directing the orchestra?
It's so limited.
Shit, yeah. Yeah. I mean, seriously. Something is using us for transportation, obviously. And instead of having a bit in our mouth and the reins are the thoughts. Yeah. And the thoughts are held as yours, all about you, and they're funneling in different information to convince you. And so it runs the show, and all the while we're thinking it's us. Yeah, it's an incredible strategy. The parasite has convinced the host that it's the host. It's mind-boggling, really. It is. And for us as addicts and alcoholics, we're like the canary in the coal mine for the vast public, because they have the same dimension and dynamic going on. It's just maybe not as expressive or flamboyant, because we're extreme versions of self-centeredness and shit. Doesn't mean there aren't other versions. We're an extreme version, and all the versions have this similar thing. Yes, some are just more outwardly flamboyant, attract people in uniform and shit like that. So,
Yeah.
but basically, something in a way has us, feeds us an interpretation, and takes the living of life. Feeds off of whatever it does. I don't know what its daily meal is on us. Maybe drama, maybe that anxiety, maybe it gets a rush off of that. I don't know. But it's like a feeding, isn't it? Like in old shamanism, they talk about it, this thing as a feeder. It feeds off of us. So it likes to feed off of the boredom that looks exciting, and drama and all this. And obviously fear or anxiety is a gourmet piece. And so it uses us to produce its food, so to speak, and it eats as us. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not going to, I don't believe it's capable of being a service animal. I don't believe it's going to be your companion. I think it sees us as a as an adversity. It's not. It likes to keep us in the dark. Yes, for sure. But we end up being alone and right. You get to be right about all the fucking resentments and shit,
Right.
and alone. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But even then, there's freedom available. If all your house of card would just collapse while you're not breathing into it anymore, things could change like that in that second. Because remember, it's a lower power. There's a higher power that can just turn around and erase this shit that seems to have years of momentum. It can change the course like that, Grace. It talks about that in here, right? The newcomer won't even know what's happening, but others will see the difference in them. And your little effort will be produced. It's sort of like when we have a public radio station, so they live on donations. So sometimes they say, hey, if you give $100 right now, it'll be matched. Someone else will match it, or 500. Well, this is sort of like, yeah, we give the $50 and it gets matched by $500. Really, doesn't it? So you go a little bit and something really expands it. Yeah. Obviously, the other way, it was you gave a whole lot and you got a little back. Yeah. So this is the exact same model, but a completely different turnaround. You give a little and get a lot now. Before you gave everything and you got a little. Yeah. Yeah. So you're not that which represents that movement, which is pretty fundamental, isn't going to change its tune. Yes. The programming does, it's not artificial intelligence, it's programming. It has its limit. You can recognize it. When you see it, yeah, you realize it can't change sufficiently enough to stay with you. Yeah. So there's a loss of interest in its importance and relevance. And then you get fed by a higher power. Yeah. 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 It isn't you. Yeah. What it says it chooses, or what it says it chose, you did not make that choice. You got dragged. You got brought there by something. Yes. And then it double whacks you by having you as the doer, and then you live in guilt and shame. And some people keep feeding it for 34 fucking years. Like, such a terrible thing when 35 years ago, give me a fucking break. You were driven to it. You were dancing with a gorilla then. You were going to stop when the gorilla wanted to stop. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. This is what's insane to me. From the bondage of self has a lot to do with freedom from time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The past, if it was supposed to happen, it did. If it wasn't, it didn't. Simple as that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the temple of the false god, past and future. That's where the head goes to really worship the false god in what's not happening. Truly. Yeah. Because when you seemingly go to the future, there isn't a God there
Right.
in the past. God is present tense now. Yeah. You want to call it that. The God of self thrives in yesterday and tomorrow. Yeah. It can make shit up. It's like a fucking magician. Yeah. Something happened. I swear to God, if we have time, I was with this lady in Australia. Now my head had a story that I didn't really like her. Yeah. But all the months, all the pictures that were taken spontaneously or whatever, I always had a smile on my face. So when I presented this case to her, she was totally fucking surprised. She says, "Hey, I thought everything was going great, and probably it was, but I didn't think so." The head. So the head says, "I got to get out of here." It was like the pressure it cooked up it's unbearable. Like living in Australia, boogie boarding all day, working on this house. It's incredibly terrible with this tall, beautiful blonde woman. Yes, I've got to get out of it. Yeah. I listened to the head completely. Fucking followed it right out of that situation into other ones. Yeah. Now, I think the proof was in the pictures. I was probably fucking a lot happier than I thought. Yeah. This is the bondage of self, I feel. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Paul, we have some hands that have been raised. Judith, I've seen your hand raised. You lowered your hand. Would you still like to come in and ask your question?
Yeah, I've just got a matter of time. It's late here in the UK. Thanks so much. I'll just quick. Thanks, Paul. Wow, so many important things there. And I had an experience this week, and I've had plenty of glimpses of being bored with self, and the selfing just sort of doesn't know what to do with itself, so it sort of takes back burner and goes away. And this week was a kind of an Al-Anon experience of where self will usually check what it said, check what it's going to say. Oh gosh, I said that. I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I shouldn't have, stood up. I know that all that crap that just, violates everything that seemingly was useful to just be clear on, just stuck with some facts. And what happens is the body contracts and constricts, and I think you've answered it though, but just to check with you, it's like a rush of adrenaline, a rush of anxiety. This is very familiar to my body. It's been like that for yonks and years. And even though addiction is, like you were saying at the beginning, it's a pure habit now. We don't have to work at addiction issues anymore. That's not, it's a habit. Everything is in its place. And the anxiety was rushing, and I was, for a split second, the self was convincing. It was quite convincing for a moment of, like, you know, you've gone wrong again. You're doing it wrong again. You're wrong. You're bad. And suddenly there was like this overwhelming like presence of reality. There was a reality that there is no that, which seemingly is now attacking my body. It's just the vibration, and the consciousness of understanding it was more present than usual, because there was kind of it was just a simplicity of, like, well, this presence, this ultimate reality can just do its next right thing. I've got nothing left with this yak. And really, there's nothing left. And the simplicity of non-engagement, I guess I could say. Now the anxiety moved on, and then it stopped suddenly. Oh, but then it came back a day later. And this was with someone, you know, in my history. I don't want to let them down, you know, like it's my mother. I want her to be happy, and there's no making another sentient being happy. I understand that now. It's a fruitless lose game. And because she's just part of the everything. She's as everything as I am, everything with everything. There's no separation. So is that anxiety when it comes, even though there was no interest? I don't want to inventory it. I don't need to be yabbering on or tell anybody. It's just, it's here, it's vibrating, it comes back. Is that what you're talking about with this, almost the physical is locked? There's a bit of locking in it. There's a knowing that's in there or something.
Yes. Yes, in some examples. But see, you can also take that to step 6 and 7, because the head wants to use that energy, what you're calling anxiety. It has its desire to use it, and you could bypass that by bringing it to the higher power through 6 and 7. And so that, because it's energy, yes, and
It's
there's
energy.
value, and the head wants to use it in one way to further more contraction and find out what the higher power would like to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like I fell into a 6-7 of, I'm willing now. I'm willing. It wasn't like I was begging God. I used to beg God. It was more like I'm willing to have, like, I told my husband even, I'm going to walk through the fire now. I don't know where that came from. It was like, I'm walking through the fire. Before we went to bed, I told him about the situation. And I just said, this time I walk through the fire, because I could lose the whole family here on this one. And it's just like, okay, then it will be as it will be, but I can't predict any futures. There was a willingness I'd never experienced. And yet the anxiety, it went, and then it came back late, like the next day or so, day and a half later. It's back.
Coming back doesn't invalidate the other stuff you just shared. It's coming back. It has its own habitual pattern.
You're right.
So the habitual pattern, it's going to reverberate. It's
right.
not, you weren't, and you didn't cause it to come back. Yeah.
No.
It's in, so the bell rings twice.
Or 1,000 times, yeah.
You take that to, again, if you like, if you have because you have a conscious touchstone of seeing things work in recovery. I mean, that's what recovery builds, a rock of faith, because it actually works.
Yes.
So from there, you can offer it to 6 and 7, because that's based on the faith that you've witnessed in your own life. It's powerful to me.
Yeah. And I think that evening there was like something surrendered me into the, I got nothing for this. Like take this, take it. You can take it wherever it want to go. Like I'll walk the fire if I have to walk into the fire like the moth unto the flame. Like that's, I'm ready. Death of self. I'm ready for more of that. And yeah,
but
I'll
in a
go there now.
way,
I'll go there now.
uh, you're going through what you are all ready to go through. So you're at the walking through the fire. You're past the point of being ready. You're in it. So basically, you've been ready or already.
I was made ready. Yeah.
Well, because walking through the fire is present tense. It's not like something that's going to happen. You described it as
Right.
something that's happening. So you were ready to walk through the fire, and now you're walking through the fire.
I am really in the fire. Yeah, I'm in the fire. or that thing, that constant naggy selfing, it knows it really wants to die. I think it's exhausted itself, and yet, like you say, it's like a parasite. It just comes back with some more ego, strength, energy, whatever. And if I'm in the consciousness, well, I can't not be in the consciousness, but it's so beautiful. And
you can cohabitate the same space.
I think I'll have to.
Peace isn't the absence of thoughts.
Right.
Peace. And there could be thoughts bouncing around. This idea the head is always making up requirements.
Right.
And, so this idea that the funny thing is, when the head stops, the idea of the thought that you were going to notice it was also the head. So there's no big noticing it. You're just living its absence. And then, you know what I mean? So the thing itself is talking about, I can't wait for me to be absent. It's and that
it's like it was perceived, but there's always a thought that comes right after perception. And it's so boring. It's almost boring.
Well, yeah, great. Let's see it. And when there's another reaction to seeing that, and a desire is given birth that you would like to have that, you're not that either. Space, the cloud, I don't believe the sky is having opinions about when the clouds appear in it. I don't think it says, I didn't want to see, I've seen this cloud before. No, it's space. It allows whatever occurs to appear in it. And I don't believe the appearance takes anything away from the sky. From our view, we always think it does. I don't think from the sky's view that, I'm littered. There's too much shit in here. I think it's like this space and shit appears in it. I know, honey. My head would love to be just like my ass likes to have a cushion. The head would love to have more absence of itself, but it's what the hell.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the awakening. Just rolling it back to the reading was that just what you said. The consciousness of the presence is itself everything that is happening. It doesn't really care whether it's I'm latching on with a
it doesn't.
separate self. It just and it's just a matter of staying conscious and recognizing that. I think now that it has no interest.
What happens is the craving for higher and greater states and shit diminishes. You lose it. And now you're okay that you got a pair of shorts on because it's like 99 degrees here today. You have really basic, you know what I mean? Yeah. And if there's dogs yapping in there, so what? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet with the yapping dogs. I've still got a lot of opinions and desires, but
Well, you
it's
don't.
that's okay.
You
It's
don't. Your
gonna
head
set
does. And
in.
then if it gets too much, do service or something. You'll get out
Right,
of it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of good service. Yes, and you're absolutely right. I'll finish there because I have to go in a minute, 1 or 2 minutes to get going, make some dinner. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. It's really useful, and I love it that there's a reading and then there's your take on it. It's very, very helpful to have the non-duality with the 12 steps now. It's really beautiful. Thanks.
Oh, great. Great. Well, thank you. It's thank everyone
Thank,
who sets these
thank you.
things up. Michael, Stacy, and Nina, and this guy David who started it all, and those are the ones that set this platform up. I just show up
Thanks.
like you do, really. Yeah, yeah. So it's nice
You
to
ready for
share
your next question?
possibilities. It's nice to share possibilities. Yeah, especially with no added requirements necessary. I think a lot of us have fulfilled all the requirements. Now, all right, maybe there's something that diminishes the idea of possibility. So let's open up that, you thought it was a ceiling, but there's a skylight there. Yeah, so let's open up the skylight. Yeah, yeah, that's what isn't it like that? We got this big cactus from a lady who used to live next door. Yeah, big cactus, and one arm of it was drooping. So I moved it a couple of times, never did anything about it. Today I just tied it up to a bamboo pole. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was there. I could have tied it up the first time, but I didn't. Now I don't get into it about it, but yeah. So a possibility entered the field, which is, hey, I could just tie this on a bamboo and have the whole thing, you know? Yeah, okay, did it. There you go. That's sort of what I feel about when we find ourselves in the awakened condition, let's say, the way they speak about in AA. A lot of simple possibilities that were ignored start becoming available. Yeah. Yeah, and they bring a whole lot, maybe relief or something else, and it just makes things easier. And I feel a lot of everything is possible, but there needs to be the possibility that has to be able to enter for those things to become possible. Yeah, or they'll just be available, potentially available, but they won't activate. So this is what I feel happens with this spiritual awakening and the progression of it. Yeah. All right. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. We have a couple of questions or a couple hands up. Bobby, you have a question? Come on in. Joe, we'll get to you in just a few minutes. Thank you for being patient.
Who's this?
Bobby, you have to unmute, please. Thank you.
Got it.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, I've been following what you've been saying for quite a few years, and this is the first time I've actually been on this site. So, I say my name's Bobby, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic.
Nice to meet you, Bobby.
Yeah, nice to speak to you, Paul. Some of the consequences of my not being able to speak a bit clearly is that after 22 years, time has caught up with me, and I had to have all the rest of my rotten teeth pulled out yesterday morning. So I know what you mean about the leg, things do catch up.
Yes.
But it was still about the spiritual experience. We read it out quite a lot at my home group, and we get a lot of people who come and they seem to have this spiritual awakening without doing the steps. and they go around telling people, yeah, that they really don't have to do the steps, put your bum on a seat, keep coming to meetings, and you'll start to get better, and as you said quite rightly there, you get the spirit right, and the body follows. And I tell all my sponsees when I'm taking them through, I drum it into them that this is about freedom from bondage of self. This is about moving away from self and moving closer to being God-directed rather than self-directed. It's the pretty simplest way I can ever think of describing it. And as it is described in the big book, it does say, there seems to be no way of entirely being rid of self without God's aid, and it's that battering about at the beginning, getting rid of self, moving to God. And it is that sort of bat and ball process, of like, I think the lady is speaking before, in that process of banging yourself around for a while until this spiritual awakening, when it came for me, it was like I just woke up one day and something had changed, changed within me. And when I see these people who have got what they say a spiritual awakening of God without doing the steps, I see this self, and they're actually giving me something that I wouldn't have otherwise. Is that I can see in these people what I used to be like. Yeah. We have a program here, a comedy program, and there's a character on it called Harry Enfield. And I used to be exactly like this character. And he would go around telling people, I'll try and do the voice. He would say, "You don't want to be doing it like that. You want to be doing it like this. I'll show you." And I was always going around showing people what they were doing wrong. I try, when I'm taking people through the steps now, I say, we're not going to go through the steps the way that I went through the steps. We're going to go through the steps the way it said it in the book. And again, that's a much more simpler way for me to get the message across. How do you, I don't know, respond to these people who you can obviously see have not got well, let's say, using the steps? Can you give me maybe some direction as to the way I might approach to be able to help these people? Yeah, because they certainly need help. They're the ones who are always whinging and moaning about this, that, and the other. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome. Well, not knowing them personally, I don't know what I would do, but the idea that I got from your share is the action figure has its own value. Yeah, it's like it's a Roman citizen when in Rome. We need to do what the Romans do. So
Yep.
the program and the habits and all this stuff is a way of life or a design for living for the action figure. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The action figure. And so the action figure is what goes through the process and the head for the diminishing of self by doing the working steps. Yeah. 4 through 9. It allows that spiritual presence to have more influence in the realm of Rome, so to speak. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. So a lot of times people proclaim something and as if that's going to change their old patterns and their old habits and the physical impressions that were left behind by this rude employer. Yeah. And I don't see it that way. It could possibly occur, but in most cases, I feel the action figure with alcoholism needs to go through the steps of recovery. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's just that simple. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Actually, the theme of our group is Design for Living. You know,
Yes.
we have those posts.
The action figure has its own little destiny and stuff, and the spiritual awakening, it just brings a certain kind of fruit through the work of the program. Yes. So and so I'm yeah, a lot of people can say something, but you can sense usually if it has any kind of life here in the day-to-day living. Yeah. Yeah. And if it doesn't, like to me, when I got struck sober, yeah, that day, life conspired to bring me to an AA meeting that night. Yeah. And so knowing that that idea of being completely spirit was going to die on the vine unless I had a way of life to allow it to extend, yes, to express. Yeah. It would have been just, fucking choked in the cradle, so to speak. But so this way of life brought about a recovery, mental and physical. Yeah. That was made it more complementary for the new regime, so to speak. Yeah. So that sense of spirit could express through the format of old Paul. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. I felt in this experience, in this event, it was essential for the action figure to go through the program so that, because basically the head, spirit doesn't have habits, the head does. Yeah. The problem does not reside in the spirit, it resides in the mind, the head. Yeah. So this head has to go through a process so that the interest that it keeps sucking up and absorbing gets cut off from it somewhat. So then the interest will be in that newfound spiritual awakening. Yeah. Yeah. And then expressed through the head and the body. Instead of thinking it's the head and the body that has the spiritual awakening. And so now the head doesn't have to do anything and the body doesn't have to do anything. I think that's a big mistake a lot of times. So
I like we give the coins out in our group that, and it says to thine own self be true. I like giving them out because it gives me the opportunity of explaining what you shouldn't do.
well, yeah. And the head is always looking for the easier, softer way.
Yeah, exactly.
And for some reason or another, people would love to find something to replace AA with. I don't, it's incredible. They always are looking for something to, So yeah, whatever works. But in this case, again, that moment of the spiritual awakening here as an event, the spiritual awakening was as bright as can be. For that brightness to be sustained here, changes had to happen to the head and the action figure. Yes. Yeah. Because the head wouldn't have been able to withstand this light coming through. It would have flipped out. Yeah. It needed to be resurfaced and reformatted for something else because a whole new thing was going to come through it. Yeah. Almost like if you had 110 wiring and then you get upgraded to like 220. Yeah. Now you've got the sense of the 220, but it ain't going to run through the 110 clearly. The 110 needs to be reformatted. Yeah. So that it doesn't get burnt out by the 220 coming through. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my feeling about the mental and physical condition being a better conduit to this of the spirit than Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
you have experience of that through Delaney Street, wasn't it? I think that you.
Delancey
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah.
Well, Delancey Street, in hindsight, informed me a lot. Delancey Street, when I was under complete control, I thrived. Yeah. So the body wasn't the body, and I mean the head wasn't a giant amplification of the self. I felt I belonged, I was purposeful. So I was in a much healthier condition, which allows different frequencies to express. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, but again, once I left Delancey Street, I was outmatched, you know. The head took over and I went through a 10-month run and then
Mm.
washed up on the shores of AA, and that was it. Yeah.
Mm.
So, but AA didn't get me sober. I got struck sober, and AA allowed me to stay sober. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I needed recovery. You know, the spirit it's not a spiritual recovery. It's a mental, physical recovery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Emotional recovery. The experience and the atmosphere of the action figure needed to be undone and redone. Yeah. And that's the program and the design for living that we have. The spirit is fucking shining brightly. But what happens if it's coming through a pinhole? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
It needs a larger, it would be more expressive if it had a larger aperture. To me, that's what recovery is.
Mm.
Yeah. It allows you to, peace can be enjoyed. Yeah. Yes. You can feel that new power flowing in. You can, you sense the presence of the higher power. Yeah. You're not sensing the presence of the higher power sort of as the higher power. You're sensing the presence of a renovated radio. Yeah, called
Mm.
Paul, the action figure. Yeah. It needed some new oil for the knobs instead of constantly being set at K-Paul. It needed to get to unclear channel to clear channel. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people I meet, yeah, sometimes the spiritual idea is just the beginning. It's not the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The spirit now it's time to clean the house and start acting differently. Yeah. Because you got a new guest. The spirit wants to come in. I feel that's what AA does. It allows the spiritual presence to flow through the action figures better. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. It's nice to meet people where uh, there's no elephant in the room. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you can hear it sometimes when you hear someone speak in AA, you can hear they have a different timbre because something has really occurred. Yeah. Uh, they don't have to spell it out. It's loud and clear if you have the ears to hear it. And yeah, I think you start getting a clarity about what's what is of the action figure and what is of the spirit. Yes. And what's the role of the action figure? What's the role of the spirit? Yeah. And I think over time you get familiar with how it's expressing in this experience. Yeah. And it never led me to disqualifying the needs being met of the action figure. It's you know just because I'm not a body, I don't starve the body. It's just you know what I mean. You're gonna get them. No more cushions for you. No, it's just I feel like I have a yeah. It seems to be all right. The balance seems to work. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks. Nice to meet you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby. All right, next up, last question we have for today.
Come
is from-
back too, Bobby. Come back and visit us. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Joe, thank you for being patient.
Sure, Michael. Thanks. And thanks, Paul. I forgot why I raised my hand, but it's been a great meeting. I've been listening to you for a while, your recordings, and this first time I've had a chance, second time I had a chance to be live. I'm at the Awakening Together Retreat House in La Vida, and here for I got to spend time with Regina last week in retreat, and there's a lot of drama going on and circumstances in Joe's life, and yet I have a place to stay and sober and all of that stuff. I've been sober many years in AA and active in AA, and I love how when people express what the head's doing, and just to bring that up. For instance, I got sober in '87 and have been active in AA for a long time. And it wasn't until maybe, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, the main problem centers in the mind. That landed right away. However, for maybe the first 25, 30 years, identified as the mind, that's what I am. Everything that goes through here is Joe, right? I mean, there's a tremendous amount of suffering. Looking back on it, it's simply from believing and identifying with that stuff all the time. I mean, constantly. So now when I hear people, if for instance, driving out here, I drove out here from Kansas City, right? And this was arranged by life, by the universe, by God, whatever, Regina and the people here, and my wife and all the stuff. And it's for my own benefit, for my family's, and I'll tell you how many times the head's going, this is the stupidest thing you've ever done. You need to turn around right now. This is not safe. You're not going to be safe. This is ignorant, and just to see that, and to have some space there to recognize that that's not me. I'm watching that. I'm watching is happening. It's just being seen. It's just being seen. And closer to home is when you were talking about, you said how many years you spent carrying the message to hospitals and centers, right? You said 11 or 12 years or something. And I'm sitting there and, like I said, I've been sober a long time and an active member and solid member of AA, but you didn't carry the message to a hospital for 11 or 12 years. Paul did it. Paul did it something better than you did, right? Maybe you need to go back and revisit that, right? I mean, that's the shit that goes on. It's just, and it's such a relief. It's such a relief to just see it, to know that it's not me, and to,
Yes.
so I feel fortunate to have ran across you and your message. I had a long time, I had like 1 foot out the door of AA, I think. And then the message you're recontextualizing, especially page 64, that whole thing on page 64 about, about self, and that's not, it's not us. And that changes everything, And today, the idea that the spirit is not what has the awakening. I mean, it's a spiritual awakening. It's not the spirit that's having the awakening.
No.
It's just kind of the shit falling away, right? It's just the false falling away. So powerful stuff, and I appreciate you, sir. So and what's been shared here. So thank you for letting me carry on a little bit.
Thank you for your share, and we'll be here. Not Thursday, but we'll be here. Usually. Thursday I'm flying, but that's the point. Once the cat's out of the bag, as a great master in India said, your head is in the tiger's mouth. once you start seeing what you're not, yeah, yeah. It's sort of like having a driver that never makes a turn. Yeah. It keeps saying the same narration. It's sort of like the GPS. When you don't follow it, it pauses and then it regroups and wants you to make a U-turn, and then you don't follow it. And yes, and basically that's sort of what starts happening. The GPS of the head keeps giving you directions and you don't take them. You just go straight. Yeah. The battery runs out sooner or later. The volume weakens sooner or later, hopefully sooner, but
Yeah.
it is going to weaken. Yeah. Because it feeds off of us, our juice. Yeah. When our juice is withheld, that's its Armageddon. It gets quite concerned then. And, it doesn't matter if you're half foot out or not. The higher power hasn't had a 1 foot in your life. It's always available at all time. Yeah. It never just put 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Yeah. It's all in. So if you're willing to agree to what was committed to, which is being taken care of by something else, yeah, that something else will take care of you. And if you don't want it, fucking all right. But if you're available, it's available. That's for sure. My feeling. Yeah. So, yeah, Joe, it's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you much, Joe. All right, Paul, went a little long today, but awesome meeting. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Let's make an announcement. Thursday, we will not have one at 10:30 Pacific time. We will have one today at 4:30 Pacific time, a non-duality one. And then we will have one tomorrow night. Yes, at 7. And then Thursday, no. But Saturday will be on. And pretty much everything will be on. Yeah, while I'm in the East Coast. So I think it's just this Thursday. And then actually, probably, yeah, it'll be this Thursday and next Thursday. The 2 Thursdays are probably going to be off. All right. The second one may happen, but the first one Thursday won't. All right. I get more confused. So I hope I didn't confuse you.
No.
All right, great. All right. So thank you, Michael.
We can check the website to keep up to date on that.
Yeah,
too,
the
right?
website has it. Has the information organized better than I can. So excuse me. We got Bill C, Kathleen. For the lady who asked about them, yes, we will get together earlier. I'm going to call up my friend Jeff today and see if he wants us to meet at his place, because he has a huge outside area, and it's not far from the church, about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah,
And so
we exchanged phone numbers with the gal earlier
right,
today.
yeah,
we'll
I'll
hook up.
let you know, Bill, and then maybe you can let her know. All right, I'll try to do that today.
Sounds good.
All right, so we got Kerry. Always a pleasure, Kerry, at the house in Hawaii. We got Samuel Jay. Nice to see you, Samuel. Welcome. I saw you last week. Yeah, Kathleen. Always. Joe. Thanks for your share, Joe. Hey, remember, you're in good hands now. Yeah. Yeah. Life is in the living of it. Yeah. It's not in the outcomes, is it? It's right now is a moment. And like it or not, you're all in this moment. There's no getting into it or believing you could be out of it. We're all in. This is, that's the way it goes. You can argue with it, but it doesn't work. We're all in, and then just read the tea leaves. Yeah. You'll see imprints, and you just take the next step. Yeah. James, nice to see the Lebowski. Yes. if you've never seen the movie The Big Lebowski, I would recommend it. If you laugh at the beginning, you'll laugh all the way through. If you don't laugh at the beginning, you'll be going, what? But the Coen brothers make some damn good movies. Yeah. I liked Raising Arizona. It was fantastic too, with Nicolas Crazy Cage. And if you're interested in a very strange horror movie, Mandy, put out only about 2 years ago, with Nicolas Cage in it, completely over the top, fantastic. That's all. Has nothing to do with the program. Just one person's opinions, which I have a very weird sense of taste, I think, with the films. Or so Amelia says. So, Kristen, nice to see you. Kristen, I'm going to see you in Doylestown.
Yep, I'm gonna be there.
Can you send me your number so I can call you if you want to meet earlier or something?
Yeah, let's meet earlier and I'll send you my number.
All right, great.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Yes, you're welcome. Roman, yes, we will have a rendezvous in Italy, hopefully in September. Yes. Anu, there she is. We got Bobby T. He's nice to meet you, my friend. Yeah. Let's see. Joseph in France. Stefan on Having Never Left. I'll be seeing Alex pretty soon, I think. Yes. Fantastic. Sarah too. Get Sarah to come along. What's she doing?
She said she's coming with me. We're gonna come together.
Yeah. Does she still have that bus? That yellow bus?
Yeah, it's it's white.
Oh, it's white. Wow.
But yes, she's bus life. I think 8 years.
Oh. All right. I'll see you next week, I hope.
Yeah.
Or this week end, maybe. Yeah. Wow. Nina. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you. You missed the title of Nicolas Cage's last movie, which is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yes. I haven't seen that yet.
But just the title, it's funny. It's funny.
I know, it is. Yeah. How's your dog, all right?
There he is. Can you see him?
No. See something moving. Oh,
There.
Oh, great.
He's alive. Thank God.
Yeah. Chilled out. They know how to chill out.
He's eating very well. Trust me.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's okay. Thank you for asking.
It just rolled over. Yeah. We got Jono from the UK. I haven't seen him in a little while. Always a pleasure. Nice to see you. We got Kim from down the LA area. We got Annette. Annette, we'll be running into you in Doylestown, I hope. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the plan. Very good.
I've been trying to recruit attendees, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. This isn't the more the merrier. It's just the way it goes. This is more only the lonely.
You hit
Jake.
that well.
Yeah, we got Lucas. Yes, we got Karen R. Nice. I don't know if we've met before. Nice to see Karen. Let me see. Christy. Yes. Who else? I think that's it. There's Karen. We've got that one. I think that's it. Hey, listen, thank you for today. It's always a pleasure to sit with everyone and yeah. Remember rule 62. Don't take yourself so seriously. Yeah, especially as self.